I was born in a place called Uganda in Eastern Africa. And I lived in Uganda till I was about the age of 4. My mother was a teenage mother. She had me when she was 16 years old. And so she needed a lot of family support to take care of me. And then civil war broke out in Uganda. And my grandmother had, many years before I was born, my grandmother and grandfather had moved their whole family to Uganda. My grandmother had 13 children, and my mother was one of them. My grandmother was a very formidable woman. She was a tough and strong woman, and she only had a 5th grade education, but she managed to raise 10 children all by herself. 3 of them passed away when they were young. She started her own business and became quite a successful businesswoman. And so at the time when I was born, she owned a hotel in Uganda. My family worked at the hotel. My mother was a teenage mother, and she struggled taking care of me. And then the war broke out in Uganda, and our whole family was moved to Kenya. And my grandmother settled in a little town. I'll get there. I'll get to questions. She settled in a little town on the border of Kenya and Uganda called Malaba, and that was my hometown. I struggled a lot at school when I was a kid. In fact, because I moved from school to school and I moved a lot, I had difficulty learning as a child. And so I didn't learn how to read until I was maybe about 7 years old. And that changed my life, because once I figured out that I could read, it kind of like opened up my brain. And then by fortune, my aunt who adopted me at the time, she remarried, and I ended up in the United States. And my stepfather worked for the World Bank, so that gave us a lot of opportunities to go to really good schools. And so I went to a military academy in Northern Virginia called Randolph-Macon Academy. That's where I finished my high school. And then after that, I went off to University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and I studied legal education at Amherst. I thought I wanted to be an archaeologist because I think I watched too much Indiana Jones, and then I figured that archaeologists had to sleep in the jungle and go to an archaeological site. And I really was not feeling the whole idea of sleeping in a jungle with snakes and spiders and everything. So I decided that archaeology was not for me. So a lot of people ask me how I ended up in law, and I always tell them that it, for me, was a process of deduction. I was not good at math. If you ask my mother, she'll tell you, anytime I did homework, I was so happy doing English. I was good at geography, at history. And then when I started math, I'd start crying. So I didn't want anything to do with mathematics. So for me, it was what career path could I take that did not involve math? And so, I got to learn about law. And my mother, who adopted me, my aunt, she was the first woman in my family to graduate from college. And I was only the second woman in my family to graduate from college. And so I graduated with a degree in legal studies. And then I went on to Harvard Law School. Now that was extraordinary for a person like me. I think part of it is because I was an immigrant to this country. I came when I was 14 years old. So I didn't know how big a deal Harvard Law School was. I mean, I knew it was a influential school. Then my last year, when I took a year off after college, and I worked like every other kid. I worked at the mall, and I did babysitting and stuff. And then I decided to start applying for law schools, and I told myself that I was only going to apply to the top 25 law schools in the country, and if I didn't get into any one of the 25, that I was not going to go to law school. I was going to try to find something else to do with my life. So I submitted applications, and I submitted to only the top 25 law schools in the country. I did my LawSat, which is my law school entry exam, and lo and behold, I got in, I think, to most of the top 10, most of the top 25. I really had the option. And when Harvard called me, it was actually April 1st. So some lady called me from Harvard Law School, and she introduced herself, and she said she was congratulating me for getting into the law school. And I said, who's this? You know, because I thought it was one of my friends playing a joke on me on April 1st, and I was not going to fall for it. And she said, no, seriously. It's me calling from Harvard Law School. So at the time, I had gotten to quite a few really good law schools, and also I had, so when Harvard called, it was a process of, do I need to go to Harvard or should I choose any other school? And of course I chose to go to Harvard. And that was an adventure, of course. It was very rigorous academically. I got the opportunity to learn with some of the best minds in the world. And it was just a wonderful experience for me, and it has transformed my life to the person that I am today. And so most of you may be asking, why am I telling you this story? But I thought that we should start from, my little story about my little life, so you can know that one day I was a child too. I'm not sure about where my life was going, not sure about what my future was, but God had a bigger destiny for me than I ever imagined that, for myself. And so I am here today, and so our topic today is about justice. So I wanted to know from all of you guys, when somebody tells you about justice, what comes to your mind? What do you think about justice?
So justice is like doing the right thing when nobody else is doing the right thing. It's like catching the people who are doing illegal things and trying to make them do the right thing.
Okay, so holding people accountable, right, for bad conduct, right?
It reminds me that to believe in God and follow Him.
Yes.
It's about how you being treated fairly, right, sort of being treated fairly and being judged on fair trial and such.
Fair trial, equality under the law.
I think maybe justice means conquering one of your goals.
Mm-hmm. So all those answers you've provided are correct. We have a common theme here: fairness, equality under the law, doing the right thing, holding people who are not doing the right thing accountable. And that is justice, right? So most people, when they talk about justice, they talk about fairness and accountability under the law. And so who can tell me what the foundation of our legal system is? Do you know what the legal system is? Yes. So what's the foundation of it? Do you know where it comes from? So of course, the Constitution is the supreme law of the United States, right? But did you know that the Constitution, its core foundation is what they called common law? Common law existed all through humanity from the Middle Ages in Europe, and it came from why they called it common law is because it was founded on common values, common morality, right? So human beings came together and they agreed that certain rules have to be put in society because we believe certain things, like we all believe that it's wrong to kill somebody, right? And we all believe that it's wrong to steal, right? And those foundations also come from biblical foundations, right? So the first law that man was ever given was the 10 Commandments, right? And you can trace all our laws, a lot of them, to the 10 Commandments. So the foundation of most society and most law is what they call common law, which comes from shared values and shared morality. And so can somebody tell me why rules are important in society? So why are rules important?
Because you can get hurt.
Yes, you can get hurt.
There's some rules that you have to be kind, and we need to be nice to others and such like that.
Yes. So rules also set standards, right? Set boundaries and conduct, right? Teach you how to behave, right? What else?
I think that rules are important so that everybody stays under control and everybody doesn't get hurt and it's not like a mayhem.
Yes, correct. So you are all correct on why rules are important. So go ahead.
So rules are put in place to like keep people safe and like keep people from getting stuff stolen and people getting killed and stuff.
I think rules are important because rules, things have to be fair for everybody, such as like one of my friends in class have a severe peanut allergy, and a lot of people bring in peanuts, but it's not really fair for him.
Exactly, it's to protect others, right?
I think that rules are put in place because that way nobody gets hurt or nobody gets stuff stolen or nobody gets their feelings hurt.
Actually, rules are important because my friend he died because he wasn't safe with the gun. So that's why rules are important. Rules are basically the limits of what we are supposed to do to keep us all safe.
Yes. Okay, we have rules in society so that we can all live in harmony with each other, so that we know how to behave towards each other, and so that we set boundaries, and the rules also dictate how we conduct ourselves in certain situations, right? So most people think of law and rules and justice as something that's outside of themselves, but from the day you're born, you live in a world of rules, right? You come into the world and mommy says you gotta be in bed at a certain time, you gotta eat your dinner, you gotta eat your vegetables, behave a certain way, right? The rules start from home, right? And then when you go to school, you learn new rules about engaging with each other at school, right? Your teachers set the rules for you. And then outside of the home and school, society sets the rules for you. If we had a society without rules, then anybody could do anything they want. I can decide I like your backpack and just take it from you, and there'll be no consequences. I can decide I just feel like hitting you and smack you in the face and walk away, and there'll be no consequences, right? So the rules and the laws are there to tell us that there's certain boundaries and that we should respect each other and we should conduct ourselves in a certain way, right? And that is why we have rules and in all kind of aspects of our lives, right? So why do people follow rules? Can somebody tell me why people follow rules?
People follow rules so they're safe, so they don't get in trouble.
Johnny.
People follow rules to make things sometimes fair and for people to stay safe and for the things to be right. People follow rules so they can influence others if they're doing the wrong thing. People follow rules so they don't get hurt.
So you guys are on top of all this.
And people follow rules because if they didn't follow rules, then everything would be bad and chaotic.
Exactly. So there's several reasons why people follow the rules, and you gave the right answers to that. To keep you safe and keep others safe. That's one reason. To prevent chaos in society so that there's order, some order in society. That is also correct. And also to hold others accountable, right? And to punish those who go outside of the rules, right? So the person who steals can incur some punishment, some kind of penalty for their bad behavior. And that's why it's important to follow rules, right? Because the rules keep us safe. They allow for order to thrive in society. They set the boundaries of how we should treat other people and how other people should treat us, right? Okay?
I have a question about you being a lawyer. Yes. When you're a lawyer, do you really figure out if somebody's telling lies? Do you really know the person?
Do we figure out when somebody's telling a lie?
Yeah. Do you really know the person?
Yes, we do. Lawyers practice different areas of law, okay? So, we all come through clients who occasionally want to bend the rules or lie, but we're very good at figuring out when somebody's not telling us the truth, because lawyers, in a way, we are also investigators, right? And so we tend to know a lot more about the law than most average people. So if somebody tells me that this is the way something works, and I've been doing it a long time and I've been studying law and I know how that's not how it works, then I know either you don't know what you're talking about or you're not being honest with me, right? And then of course there's also other areas of law where, people come across people who are not telling the truth, right? In criminal law, somebody may have stolen something and say that I didn't do it. And so you have investigators who go out there and investigate the case and figure out what the facts are, right? Facts are very important in life, right? So that's what investigators do. They help the lawyers, they go out there and figure out what the facts are, and they follow the evidence and tell you, this is really what happened in this particular situation. So yeah, we're pretty good at figuring out liars.
I have a question of making good choices.
About what?
Making good choices.
Making good choices? Okay, that's a good question.
I've got life needs, and sometimes you make the right choices, and sometimes you make the wrong choices. And there's two ways to get out of things. Make it to heaven or make it to hell.
That's very thoughtful. That is wonderful. So let's talk about choices. Let me answer his question before we move on. Choices, right? From the foundation of humanity, right? Where did the first rule happen? Can anyone tell me? Does anyone know where the first rule happened? The first time humanity was made to make a choice? In the Bible, it's a Bible story. The Garden of Eden, right? Okay? Garden of Eden, right? So God tells Adam and Eve, you may eat everything in this garden I have given you, but, what does he tell them? But you must not eat the fruit from the truth of good and evil, right? And that's where free will comes, right? Free will comes from that. And so of course the serpent, Lucifer in the form of the serpent, of course he deceives Adam and Eve and makes them eat from the fruit of knowledge and evil, right? And then that the consequence is the fall of humanity. And the serpent is still with us today, right? And that's why we have free will, right? It's a concept and free will essentially means you have the right to decide what is right and what is wrong. You have the right and you have control over how you conduct yourself and how you behave, right? So if somebody tells you this is right and this is wrong, and you choose either one, that is free will, right? And if you choose the wrong choice, then of course there's a consequence to go with your choice. Anything in life is about choice, right? Good and bad. So, if you choose the wrong action, then there's a consequence that comes out of that action. And if you choose the right action, there's also a consequence that comes out of that action, right? So good and bad decisions really come down to your self-will and your self-determination, right? So you have to decide, what you want for yourself and what's the best action for yourself. And of course, your parents, your teachers, and those who love you always encourage you to make the right decisions, right?
So, what type of law are you in?
I practice immigration law. That's my expertise. When I got out of law school, I was a corporate attorney. And then I chose to go into immigration law because really as an immigrant, that's what really spoke to me. That's where I have found my purpose. So most of my clients are researchers and scientists and doctors and, and all kinds and computer scientists and everything who work for really big client companies. And I help them through the immigration process. If they want to come work in the U.S., I help them apply for visas to come to work in the U.S. And then I help them apply for permanent residency or green cards, through their employers. So that's what I do for a living now.
Well, what does the FBI really do in terms of law?
The FBI? Well, the FBI, do you know what FBI stands for?
I think it's investigation something federal.
It stands for Federal Bureau of Investigation. So you have state police. So for example, in Georgia, we have state police, right? And then we have state police, and then we have the FBI. And the FBI, what they do is they investigate federal crimes, right? Like, let's say if somebody steals in Georgia, then runs to Tennessee, runs to Florida, then it becomes, the FBI will step in and help the local police investigate because that crime has passed now several state lines, right? So FBI, they help investigate like federal crimes, they help investigate international crimes that affect the homeland. So they're basically investigators. They're not judges or anything like that, but they help, investigate crimes and offenses, and then their evidence is used in court against the perpetrators of those crimes and offenses. Okay?
What are the different types of lawyers that you can be?
There's so many different kinds of lawyers you can be. So depends on your interest. Do you know what you want to be when you're big? A teacher. Well, there are lawyers who practice educational law, and they protect teachers, and they pass laws that help the educational system. There are lawyers who practice criminal law. There are lawyers who practice corporate law. There are different areas of corporate law to practice. There's just a whole bunch of law. There's employment law. So you can be quite, there's a whole bunch of different lawyers you can be. Depends on your interest. For me, immigration was my interest, so that's how I became an immigration lawyer. But before that, I was a corporate lawyer, and before that, I was a litigation lawyer. So I used to, help represent people in court.
Was law school really hard for you personally?
Yes, law school was hard, but any good thing in life is hard. Law school was challenging. It was a new experience for me. I didn't have any lawyers in my family. I'm the first lawyer in my family. So I didn't have any point of reference. I didn't have anybody I could look to and say and ask, what's this all about? And that's the difference between, somebody who's grown up here who may have a whole circle of people to ask questions about. So I found law school challenging, but challenging in a good way. And what I learned, what I've learned in my life, like I told you guys, I started not even knowing how to read, I didn't know how to read till I was about 7 or 8 years old, reading properly at about 7 or 8 years old. So I have always embraced challenges in my life, and I hope that all of you will do the same. Life is a series of challenges. Nothing good comes easy. If you want to be the best lawyer, you're going to have to work really hard. If you want to be good at at a sport, you're going to have to work really hard. You just don't become LeBron James or any one of those stars by, sleeping on your bed, and you wake up, you practice before everybody else, you practice and practice and practice over again until you get it right. And that's how life is. It's about hard work to be good at something. Okay? Yes. Lawyers are human beings too, and just like any other human being, they're subject to the laws of self-will and self-determination. And some lawyers make very bad choices. Either they like money too much, so they decide that they want to pursue money and they don't care about the cost, or they get involved with really bad clients who get them into a lot of trouble. So yes, there are lawyers who do bad things, and there are lawyers who end up in jail.
As a lawyer, sometimes, as you said, you probably would have done different cases. How do you determine when someone has been framed and they're innocent? I know in most cases, sometimes the lawyers do a good job, but in the case where the lawyer didn't do a good job and the person goes to jail, what happens to that person?
Those are really unfortunate instances in the law, but in that situation, there's been a couple of, quite a number of people involved in that process, right? So, before somebody goes to jail, there's an investigation, there's discovery done in the legal process. Then there's ultimately the decision of a jury, right? So it's hard to tell where that, how an innocent person can end up in jail. Usually it results from misconduct at some point of an investigation before an innocent person can end up being put in jail, right? So either a prosecutor engaged in misconduct or some investigator engaged in some kind of misconduct that resulted in this person being improperly charged with a crime. And we see that, right? We see where people are released from prison after many years of serving a sentence for a crime they did not commit, because maybe at the time that they were charged with committing the crime, there was no DNA testing, and then now we have DNA testing and it completely exonerates them, right? Or we've seen situations where somebody falsely claimed that person was present at a crime when they were not there, and then they maybe make a confession later, many years later, or somebody who's in jail confesses to committing the crimes many years later. So those are really unfortunate situations in the law, and usually they do involve some level of misconduct somewhere, because a lot of investigators do their jobs and they do them really well, A lot of lawyers do their jobs and they do them really well. But like you said, there are certain human beings out there who engaged in bad conduct, And so as a consequence, it results in a very severe consequence to an innocent person.
So what advice would you give us to figure out a profession that's right for us?
What are you passionate about? What tugs at your heart? Okay? Some of us are fortunate enough that we know what we want to be from an early stage. Some of us not so fortunate, but it's okay to explore, okay? It's okay to try and figure out what your interests are. And school is the best opportunity you can get to do that, because you get to do, if you think you wanna, for example, you wanna be a lawyer, right? Figure out how you feel about history, political science, things like that. Do you like reading a lot? Because a lot of law is not the way they show it on TV. Most lawyers, we spend like 99% of our time in an office reading, researching, and writing. So if you want to be a lawyer, you better be one of those people who likes to read a lot, research a lot, and write a lot and write well. So school gives you the opportunity to explore. I'm hoping that all of you will end up in college, but college is always a wonderful place to figure out things, because that's the foundation of a career. And your first 2 years, you're able to take all kinds of different classes, talk with different professors and everything, and then, really, hone into your interests. But you don't want to pursue a career just for money, okay? You don't want, you want to pursue something that you're passionate about because you want to be sustained in that career for the rest of your life. And the only way you can do something that you really like for all, the rest of your life is if you really like what you're doing. Okay? So never pursue anything for money. Even though the world tells you that you need money, and gives you those wrong signals, pursue your passion. There's so much wealth in helping people. I believe in being the light of the world and the salt of the earth, right? So always do good, never do bad, always strive to help, never harm, and then find your passion, find what drives you, what motivates you, what makes you want to wake up every morning and do something meaningful with your life and gives you a lot of joy. And a lot of people succeed at things they really like doing.